Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and our special guest, master composer. I want to say master... You know what I want to say. Hey. Master musician, my favorite guitar player who's alive because all the rest are dead. Amazing drummer, record producer, just somebody that, like myself, won't shut up or go the fuck away. That'd be Weasel Walter. Hi, Weasel.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Lydia.
We're happy to have you, and guess what? We know you very well. Hopefully the audience knows you very well at this point because you've done a lot of things.
Yeah, I was waiting for the disclaimer. By the way,
you've done, as I like to say about Weasel, he is the song with so many notes that nobody can hear them all. So in a sense, he's the man that has made so many records that nobody can hear them all.
Most people haven't listened to them, but we're going to change that at some point.
Well, most people can't keep up with the obsessive mania that you bring to this world, which is your own output, mostly music, but there's other things as well.
I think part of the issue is that I've always focused on what I believe is the correct music in any point in time, and the correct music is not always what everybody else fucking likes. So that
hello. Is that one of the things that brought us together? Do I give a fucking shit what anybody wants to hear?
Probably.
And brought me in too.
So. Tim Dahl, do you care?
Well, I care because I was brought together with you also because of this man to your left.
Look, let me go way back.
Oh, please, let's start at the
13
beginning.
years old. I'm at the library doing my research on rock and roll bands.
You know how much I love 13-year-old boys.
And I see this picture of this lady with a tarantula on her
lady?
boot.
Uh-oh.
Call that a lady?
I call her a lady. Well, that was then. This is now. But
why I oughta?
I have a bit of arachnophobia, so there's a bit of a melding there psychologically.
Hang on. Wait, calm down. He sees a picture of me with a tarantula on my breast, and he's scared of spiders.
Well, she looked pretty interesting, and I was trying to find out
He liked my hair.
Well, I was trying to find out about rock bands, so I read, and the thing that really got me was the group Teenage Jesus and the Jerks being compared to a Chilean torture chamber. And I thought if a band sounded like that, I really got to check this fucking band out.
In spite of the spider.
You never looked back.
I never looked back.
Hang on. Let's see where he looked after that.
I want to
You're looking at my dress?
Well, I looked in a lot of fucking places.
And have you also there's a thread with spiders.
Excuse me. He was looking at my legs on the back of the Contortions album.
What? No, my dad did. When I was in.
By the way, excuse me, your dad.
I got a story for everything.
Your dad and my dad have the same name, Lenny. How weird is that? All right,
I can't believe it.
I don't know if that's a good
thing. Wait, so your dad was looking at my legs?
In 7th grade, I went to a used record store in my hometown of Rockford, Illinois, and I was really wanting to buy a No Wave album that I didn't have, and I found a copy of By Contortions, the first Contortions record, and I found a copy of James White and the Blacks, Off-White, which were sort of companion pieces. And I brought them up to my dad, and I said, "Dad, can I buy these?" And my dad kind of looked him over, and he looked at By Contortions, and there's a picture of this woman, Terrence Sellers, on the front. And my dad looks at me and goes, "Is that a man?" And I was just kind of like, I don't think so.
Terrence Sellers, the correct sadist, who wrote about Terrence Sellers, who was a gorgeous dom at the time.
And I don't think she would have liked my dad saying that she looked like a man.
But
would have been hell
What
to
did
pay,
your
dad
say about my legs?
Well, he flipped the other record over, which was James White and the Blacks, and there was kind of like, there's this rogues gallery of buffoons on the back, but also there's this picture of this lady's legs bound together in a pair of stockings, and my dad kind of looks at that and he goes like, which is a classic Lenny Walter response, and I bought the records for $5.
Excuse me, you failed to
well, I didn't know they were your legs till much later on.
Of course you didn't, but still, no wonder, but they still provoked something in you. Well, first of all, they weren't just my legs, they were kind of bound with rubber.
Well, those turned out historically, that was a cheesecake photo shoot by Julia Gorton.
Julia Gorton was a photographer who took very early photos of me. I kind of started her career. She made a calendar of some cheesecake photos, which I'm sure Weasel Walter in his young, demented teenage mind found eventually.
Well, the Lydia Lunch cheesecake calendar is a bit rare, but Julia does have copies of those. I've never seen a real one.
But the Lydia Lunch cheesecake is forever right here.
I don't know if
I don't have anything witty to say to that. But
so did Lenny Walter. I mean, you were collecting records. at a very young age, you decided I'm really into music. I'm really into music.
No
I'm really
way.
into I'm into the music that I want to be into, and I kind of don't give a fuck what other people think about the music I want to be into. But was Lenny Walter dad? Was he a censor? Was it when he did he have to look at the album art?
I mean, he's in seventh grade.
Oh, you're in seventh grade. I thought you were a little younger.
My short take on it is that I think my parents knew they had a real special
Weirdo.
one. And
Weirdo.
they kind of let me do my thing. They tried to protect me from things they thought were like.
Okay, well,
So wait, seventh grade, you're what? How old? 9?
No,
10?
seventh grade's like 12, 13.
Yeah, something like 13. Yeah.
See, I mean, we were very different at 13 because at 13, I was already running away to New York and going to backstage concerts.
He wanted to grow up fast, and you grew up fast.
Exactly. But the thing is, he knew, like I knew, what we wanted to do.
Yes, you did. I knew at a young age I wanted to do too.
We all knew what we wanted to do.
When
Here's
I was
it.
18, I told my dad. He said, "Are you going to go to college next year?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to move to New York in a school bus with my friends." And he said, "Oh, really?
There's still time for that, Weasel.
Where are you going to get that school bus from?" And I kind of went, "Uh-oh." So I went to college.
So with your folks kind of like, okay, we got a live wire here. What was the reaction when they found your copy of Fingered?
It disappeared.
Oh, they took it away from you.
Let's just
Yeah, never heard
describe
about it
to
again.
those that don't know
Never
what
mentioned.
Fingered is. It's a drive-in exploitation short that Richard Kern and I did, which is, well, it's not pornography, but it's pornographic in nature.
It's called Fingered.
Hello.
And how did they find it?
How did you find it?
Well, when
Wow,
I went to
better
college,
question.
I had a drawer that I put some choice things in.
I'd love to
Well,
know
how
what
old were
else
you when
was
you
in
got
that
it?
choice.
Oh, a girlfriend I had for a hot minute gave me a copy when I was 16.
Oh, wait, you're 16 and you see Fingered. What the fuck do you think?
Well, I was more interested in your music, frankly. I mean, I found it was
It
puerile.
must have been too harsh for you.
I mean, that kind of like edgy shit. You know, I was more into G.G. Allen
You're
than
so-
I was Fingered. So
Ooh,
I mean,
okay.
so you're into
It's not a
disgusting,
contest.
ugly men that shit
Right.
instead of hot women who are geniuses in stockings.
Hey, yo.
Wait a second.
G.G. Allen wrote the song "Hard Candy Cock." I mean, that is a fucking
G.G.
masterpiece.
Allen was
Sorry.
a piece of shit that should have killed himself when he said he was going to instead of waiting. Anyway, go ahead. Fingered was not for you because we know that.
And the folks didn't like finding
Hang on.
either.
There
Well,
is-
it was fine.
There is a sensitive and actually an elegant side to Weasel Walter. And let's face it, Fingered is not elegant.
No, I'm
He's
into
more elegant.
beauty and romance, of course.
Well, fuck the romance. You're into beauty and aesthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah, like G.G. Allen.
Allen, when he
G.G.
fucked his
Allen,
brother
he's-
up the
that
ass.
guy's
Yeah.
into fucking
All right, let's get back.
romance.
Let's
He's
go.
into his brother.
All right, quiet down. Let's go back to your obsession with contortions and Teenage Jesus.
Okay.
Because you were so obsessive about the contortions, and I've seen these file cards listing every single date the contortions did. And you were, at this point, a young upstart who had not, as far as I know, touched a musical instrument yet.
No, I had. I was goofing around with instruments. I just
Oh,
sucked
okay.
at them. But the thing is that I really related to the no wave thing because I felt my personality and my wants and
You were an alien.
yeah, I was an alien.
You were alienated.
And it seemed like, well, why wouldn't you want to go to an awesome place where like anything goes and do whatever you want and meet people who are totally fucking crazy and doing their own designs?
Did you ever find that place?
He's here now with us, isn't he, Tim Dahl?
In special pockets.
Yeah, intermittently all the time, but you know, life has its ebbs and flows, so sometimes it's not
I think
so
Weasel
groovy, but-
became his own crazy, maniacal, city-shifting adventure that was based around the original idea and intent of what No Wave was. He actually brought that spirit to not only when he went to Chicago and then he went to Oakland and he moved around and they came to New York. He had already been imbued with that spirit.
Yeah, and I did
So-
it with no fucking money either.
Like all of the rest of us did. Hello.
So Weasel, how many records have you made?
If you count,
You're writing, not including mastering, mixing, producing other people's, just you as an artist.
if you check the stats and you
Bands.
include like everything, like
Yeah.
compilation tracks and all that crap, it's like 200 records.
It's very impressive. It's very impressive. Does that include all your little like weekend projects? Like, hey, I'm gonna make a Nitro intro and outro collage album, or I'm going to.
Well, I'd like to know how many of those albums are
Well, eventually
actually.
I group those all together because they're all important.
I'd like to know how many of those albums are live recordings, because that is one thing. Is that, like, you've done a lot of one-offs or unique improvisational performances, but you're always recording them. So, how many of these 200 or more so monster pieces have actually been live recordings? Because why shouldn't you record them live, especially when it's improv?
I've been playing improvised music since I was a kid by myself, and then I was doing it with other people since 1990.
Who were your favorite improvisers?
I grew up listening to black free jazz from the 60s, like Cecil Taylor, Ornette Coleman,
I'm
Albert
saying
Eiler.
who you've worked with, though.
Some of the pinnacles were Roscoe Mitchell
Amazing.
and Evan Parker,
And what about Jack, what's his name, Blum?
John Blum.
John
you
Blum.
have a
Oh.
special
I have a special.
he's not in the
Hang
same-
on. Well, hang on. I have a special. I don't
creatively,
know why.
but not recognition.
I have a special. I don't know what you call it. Perversion for John Blum, who is a piano player that no one will let touch their piano. That I saw a performance with Weasel on drums and John on piano, and I have to say it was one of the most stimulating things I'd ever seen, because here was really two maniacs pounding it out on equipment that nobody would ever let them touch unless it was their own. And it was just fucking magnificent.
When I was a kid, I was interested in all the outside fucking culture shit. You know, I was going to the library and reading about surrealism and Dada and cult films, and I was into 60s free jazz and punk rock and no wave and modern classical music and all this stuff. And I was just checking out culture because I knew that I stood outside from the mainstream, and I just really enjoyed expression of nonconformity. And
Yet you never liked rap.
Well,
not really,
you know,
no.
that's
I'm not into narratives, really.
yeah, he doesn't like the lyrics.
I don't like
That's-
story songs.
He doesn't like story songs. That's why he's been working with me for I don't know how long. But I guess I'm the exception to the story songs.
Well, your arcs are dramatic. Well, and also, I mean, you know, there's some of your work that I prefer over others, and
well, tell me
you're
what that
prolific,
would be.
So why wouldn't
so
that
wait,
be the
you
way?
prefer the Drowning of Lucy Hamilton? No words
Well,
at
I mean,
all.
Teenage Jesus and the Jerks is my favorite.
Well, because it's
rock
half
band.
instrumental. Favorite rock band of all time.
Oh, because formally on every level, it's perfect.
All right, so I'm going to run with this.
Wait, hang on. I need to hear that again. So, from master composer,
I'm really sucking up here.
somebody that has musical systems I've got no fucking clue about, even though he's described them to me. Somebody that's released over 200 albums, who considers Roscoe Mitchell, Albert Eiler, Cecil Taylor, you know, thinks that Teenage Jesus. Oh, I want to get to the point of this.
Well,
Why?
if I analyze it now in the prime of my life, I think that it is a perfect intersection of complexity and simplistic brutality. You achieved a certain complexity through a very visceral means that there was an intellectualism there, but it wasn't like an academic intellectualism. It was like a working class intensity or something that I related
So,
to.
because the music sounded like a meat grinder or a garbage truck. And
Yes, and you were using really simple tools, and you did something so
well, that
alien.
was more simple than one drum and a guitar and a bass.
Not much.
I'm always fascinated by how much import you put on teenage, because you have actually analyzed Teenage Jesus. Like we did, oh yes, the bane of Tim Dahl's life, being forced or coerced or seduced into playing the drum
It had
in
to
a
be.
Teenage Jesus
That
one-off.
was my design.
That
and
pisses all-
literally, Weasel had to take Tim Dahl's hands and make him play like a monkey.
Well, yeah,
it was,
well, it's
it was
true.
one of my
and you
favorite.
were awesome.
You were awesome. It was one of my most favorite
No
musical
other drummer
sadistic
could have
moments.
done it the way you did it, and that was exactly
the thing
why
is,
you had to
it was my first and only professional drum gig ever. And when I tell drummers, I said the gig was 15 minutes. I made $1,000. They don't like that so much.
Well, and also, Tim, what I love about Tim Dahl coming into Retrovirus, thank you, Weasel, is that Tim really didn't know my music, but when we met, he understood my intent. And also, he didn't know Teenage Jesus at all. As a matter of fact, we had to reduce him to idiocy because that's, to me, part of what the music is. But he was perfect because anybody that's, except for Weasel, the more musical you are, the less you are going to understand what Teenage Jesus is. Tim Dahl is extremely fucking musical. So he literally had to be reduced to a, what are they called? Those little monkey clappers.
Yeah, I forgot those wind-up monkeys.
But the design was perfect because you had a person who doesn't play the drums but who can count.
Well,
And
we had
that's what
limited
really
time.
mattered.
We only had one rehearsal, so
Exactly.
so I had to nail. Basically had a sound unrefined, and I had to nail it. So,
But you stopped it because your brain is refined, but your technique wasn't refined.
out of
That was the
phase.
perfect nexus because we didn't have 20 rehearsals.
Well, the opposite also of Teenage Jesus to a lot of the improv you've done is that there was nothing improvisational about Teenage Jesus. It was highly structured. Now, you have musical systems again that I cannot even comprehend. You seem to think Teenage Jesus had a musical system.
Absolutely.
It was just absolute idiot savant.
Now, when you dissect it, there's
a lot
so
of things
much,
coming together.
Well,
there's so much nuance.
You know
to
more
it.
about it than I do.
You had a system of these guitar clusters
Of
that you
musical
used
abuse.
that were very specific, that were a lexicon, like a language of guitar chords, like these weird clusters that you used, that you innately were like, what's the most annoying sound I can get on the guitar? It's this. And then you would store it. I watched you, you're like, we had to play this Teenage Jesus and a Jerks and you're like, oh geez, how does this go? And you totally knew it. Like
well,
the back
I
of
knew
your
where the
hands.
slide was, but
Outrageous.
okay, all right.
Still,
anyway.
people don't even know what you're doing on the guitar.
Let me move on here.
But I'm just going to finish this with, I love when metal guitarists compliment my guitar playing because I think you are a fucking idiot. But thank you, Weasel, because you understand it better than anybody and you explain it back to me. I'm glad that inspired you because the precision of it, but the infantilism of it and the sadism of it, and maybe the beauty of it, I hoped was what inspired you to then go on, as well as a million other things you were listening to, went on to create what you then ultimately created. What else was influencing you at that time of the young 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old Weasel Walter?
Well, the big ones. The
big
big
biggies.
ones are free jazz and no wave and
Well,
I guess
who else
punk.
in No Wave? And who? You're so eclectic. Do tell.
I don't know. I mean, I was really into the whole thing as an anthropological dig of a time and a place that no longer exists.
You are an archivist of this kind of
And
history,
people have come
which is
to me
amazing.
as a reference.
Well, and
for these
also,
things.
besides your own music, you have spent, for instance, 20 years digging out Jack Ruby, which was a band that predated No Wave. That was kind of the cross between garage punk and no wave and punk rock. And it took you 20 years. And then, in my opinion,
maybe longer than 20 years because, I remember as a teenager, this Jack Ruby being mentioned as footnotes in books about new wave and punk and stuff like that. And I remember George Scott from the Contortions being mentioned
And
as
Eight-Eyed Spy.
being in Jack Ruby, and then he's credited as Jack Ruby on your record.
Well, and it's one of the things that actually you contacted me before Retrovirus about what I remembered about Jack Ruby. And Jack Ruby was George Scott, Robbie Hall, Chris Gray,
yeah.
and
Boris Police Band.
Boris Police Band.
Bunch of other people.
And it was a band that I didn't even realize teenagers used to gig with him. But Weasel, when he was after 20 or more years researching to dig up the Jack Ruby archives of this band again, that was the connective tissue between garage band, punk, no wave, which George Scott was in, who went on to be in the Contortions, and Eight-Eyed Spy and the Raybeats. Weasel dug up this and compiled this record, which then the heinous TV show Vinyl, thank you, Lee Ronaldo, for nothing, kind of ripped off, and for no credit to him. But this is only one of the things that he is an archivist.
I just do
Besides,
this shit for fun. I don't give a fuck.
one of the latest things that you archived, and I think we need to talk about this,
Oh, yeah.
which Tony Zanetta was very interested in. Tell us about the latest. See, not only are you just a master musician, you are really a master archivist. So the latest thing that you dug up, the Teenage Jesus live record that Nicholas Jar put out is the best of the Teenage Jesus, and that Weasel Walter was responsible for that. But the latest Ozone record, talk about that for a minute.
And plug the fuck out of it because it's great.
There's always something new that's old, that's awesome, that everyone ignored because everyone are stupid and have bad taste. So most people overlook awesome shit constantly. And since I hate everyone, I'm always looking for that goodness that was overlooked by all you fucking dumb monkeys. So I have known Paul Zone from the Fast for a while.
You got the audience.
Paul Zone, by the way, who designed my Queen of Siam costume, who I've known since like 77, who used to cut Debbie Harry's hair, The Fast, Man to Man, etc.
Paul Zone is a seminal cult figure in the sort of New York
Photographer.
scene. Yeah. And I was sort of obsessed with this film footage of his band The Fast from 1977 that was shot for a hardcore porn movie called Punk Rock by this director, Carter Stevens.
That's ridiculous.
And when I had always heard of The Fast, and I was like, oh yeah, The Fast, whatever.
Which, by the way, the Fast were pretty much crappy pop that
They
would
were like a power pop band.
It would open for Blondie a lot.
But when I saw this footage of them playing at Max's, and it was so scummy and like TV trays, like
And
a bunch
by
of
the way,
kids
they were
in the
all
basement.
like Queen's brothers.
Yeah, three gay brothers from like
three
South
gay
Brooklyn.
brothers from South Brooklyn. How does that Italian? How does that happen?
Awesome. But anyways, the lower class ingenuity of the whole thing was so great. Like everything was covered in aluminum foil and like, I could really relate
And
to
Paul
it.
Zone had been on the scene. They'd been on the scene since like 73.
Yeah.
Because they were Brooklyn
glam
boys.
rockers.
Yeah.
But needless to say, when I started working with Lydia, I was kind of like, what about Paul Zone? You know Paul Zone? She's like, Paul Zone. We go back forever. So anyways, we went to LA and I met Paul Zone. And now Paul, instead of a 98-pound weakling with
Who looked
long,
like T-Rex.
curly hair, now he's a
Wanted to.
big old muscular bear and he's hilarious. Paul Zone's a great guy. So Paul was just amazed that I was like super psyched about The Fast, and I was super psyched especially about his brother Mandy, who sort of dressed like an SS guy and did these like extreme falsetto vocals, right up my alley. But anyways, I had always just talked about how much I loved Mandy's performing in The Fast. And he finally, a few years later, he's like, hey man, check this out. And he sends me these recordings of his brother's band
From
called
Texas,
Ozone.
Kansas City.
Yeah, they were a band
Peter Crowley.
between like 79 and 83, and they were basically this awesome like heavy like punk glam metal band with insane
Power
vocals.
glam. They were power glam.
Yeah, they're just like everything I want in one band, like a classic rock band that has like sounds like a Sherman
Well, every
tank.
time I heard anything that Weasel would be playing in his car that was Ozone, I thought it was like a glam cover band because every song sounded like a hit, but it was like 10 years too late.
Right.
I'm a big fan
Should
of
have been
the
in the
Sweet
70s.
and all the
Love
most
the Sweet.
gnarly brain dead 70s
If
glam.
we won't fuck,
listen.
if you won't fuck us, then someone else will.
We're getting off subject because I think the audience should check this out because it's a great.
We
You
found
know,
the tapes
yeah,
and I released
yeah.
it. It's called Mandy Zone and Ozone live at Max's Kansas City,
and it is
1981.
an unknown history, a part of New York history that nobody else except for Weasel Walter is going to know or care about, and that's what he's done, and that's what he did with the Teenage Jesus Live thing. That's what he did with the Jack Ruby thing.
Von Elmo.
And now he's threatening Von Elmo.
Vaughn's been calling me again.
Von Elmo, who is one of the most supreme New York weirdos that nobody knows about and nobody should, but other than the fact he would use occasionally a chainsaw, and it was just an abomination. He's resuscitated.
reincarnated many times, yeah.
Let's go back to Weasel
They had
Walter.
lettuce once in the
Let's
year
go back
one.
to Weasel
I
Walter's
love them all the
own
stray dogs.
career. This is it. He is the resuscitator of dead men and stray dogs. Now, Weasel, you're in Rockland.
Lydia.
Go to Chicago.
Rockford.
Rockford.
I like that you call it Rockland. That's
Well,
really
that's
edgy.
New York. He's in Rockford.
Rockford.
Go back to Rockville.
Well, Rockford also famous for
Cheap
Cheap
Trick.
Trick,
Big
yes,
deal.
exactly.
Nobody cares.
Weasel does.
And Natasha Leggero.
Oh, right.
Who I
Oh,
went
that
to high school
comedian.
with.
Okay, well, I'm.
And I probably
yeah, you should have anyway. You know, maybe you would have become a comedian instead of me. Maybe she would have become a music, or she would have been filled with music. All right. Anyway, you go to Chicago because what else are you gonna do?
Well, that's
Tell us about-
Well, okay, like my parents were basically like, "You gonna go to college?" And I was like, "I guess." And I just went to the first fucking thing I found, which
Closest
was
to you.
this cheap, shitty, fucking private college in Chicago, and it was. I just went.
Did you
packed
learn
up my
anything?
bags.
Did you learn anything?
I learned how to type.
You
That's
are
practical.
you are one of the fastest transcribers I've ever seen. I mean, this is a guy like home ed paid off.
Let's talk about this for the rest of the show.
I mean, those fingers, trust
Let me
me.
tell you what my technique is. for
Hey,
typing.
you know what? It's actually important down the line.
I'll keep
Yeah.
So wait, but I mean,
Stay in school, learn how to type.
music theory? What?
I learned some shit, but it sucked. I slept through my classes because I just wanted to play in bands, and I fucking started playing in bands.
So you start playing in bands.
Yeah, I formed a group called the Flying Luttenbachers.
And to this day, here we go. Because you know what? History
Tim's in it.
History doesn't
Last couple
necessarily.
of years I have been.
Some historical things, it's not repeating itself. It's like they were never recognized for how great they were in the first place. So why the fuck not bring them back? Hello. And that's why the two of these sitting here beside me, that's why we have Retrovirus. That's why the Flying Luttenbachers are back in the fucking mix. Successful European tours.
Just came back,
New
yeah.
releases.
You know, I was really obsessed with free jazz and when I was a kid, and I just wanted to play fucking free jazz, but I also had sort of, you know, this punk rock, no wave sort
Rock and
of
roll hoochie coo.
attitude towards structuralism and being like loud and noisy and fast. So I just put the two together. and
Ugly,
that's how the
loud,
band
snotty,
started.
and loud.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, when we started, we were just a loud, snotty, white, free jazz band.
And
we still
16,
are.
17, 18 albums later.
Well, it took lots of forms along the way.
Yeah, well, I just basically decided to special plead for whatever music I thought was most needed for me in whatever era. Like whatever was being ignored, I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to do hardcore free jazz. Now I'm going to do like extremely atonal prog.
But under the, but
whatever.
the Flying Luttenbachers released quite a few records. So the format of that changed, and under that moniker.
Well, also because I would burn people out because I was super intense and I would be a real
Oh,
fucking
really?
asshole.
Wait.
Yeah.
Hold on to that thought for a minute, Weasel. You're super intense.
The Flying Luttenbachers just put out their 16th album called Imminent Death, and it's really good. And we just went on tour and we played 17 gigs in Europe, and we fucking
In 18 days.
destroyed
Something like
everything.
that, yep.
I even did half the gigs with a fever, and I was just amazing. I was like a Sherman tank.
Well, that's
That's what I've been bred to do. I come from a long line of warriors, so I lift things, and I sweat, and I die of heart attacks.
You don't die of a heart attack.
Try me.
You know, you speak about death a lot.
I do.
You know, and you remind me.
Imminent Death
excuse
by
me,
the
you-
Flying
you-
Luttenbachers.
Exactly. You remind me of myself when I was younger. There comes a point when you taint death, when you taunt it, when you tease it until you realize, hey, it'll come soon enough. And you know what? Then you're fucking dead.
Look, I'm 27 years old. I'm over the hill now, and I got
Actually, you're 40 something, whatever. You're still 13 years younger than I am, son. And all I'm saying is, I taunted death, and it will come soon enough. So you better, actually, I think you should be in your prime of life. You should be living for the glory now. Yeah, that's living,
But Lydia,
not on a
Lydia,
sir.
people like you have been the salve to
Oh, yes, your
my
universal,
universal
wound.
wound.
I
And
know.
you have,
And I
it
got-
burns inside of me, but
Oh,
like,
trust me, and that is not an infection.
Weasel. Speaking of death, you're always wearing death metal T-shirts.
It's true.
So those,
Bestial.
so
Warlord.
talk about talk when you kind of jump
Bestial
when you
warlord.
jump that fence into the metal world.
good question. You know, I wore my best T-shirt today because I knew I was going to be in the movies. So I wore my Bestial Warlust Vengeance War Till Death T-shirt. They were a mid-'90s Australian war metal band, and war metal is sort of like, less talented than death metal, but more obnoxious. So I think that sort of sums everything up. In the early 90s, this guy, Kevin Drum, I was hanging out with him a lot and eating hamburgers and listening to free jazz. And he's kind of like a known experimental sound guitar guy. I kind of turned him on to free jazz and he turned me on to death metal. And I was sort of anti-metal. I was always
Right,
on the
yeah,
punk side of the tracks because it was like
Yeah, kids were susceptible to the marketing and
in the
the
80s
fashion.
it was like punk versus metal.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, I'm punk.
But that's for dumb people. So
Well, heavy metal to me seemed like guys in leotards going, whoa, which I'm not against,
Right.
apparently. But at the time, it didn't seem that good musically, and maybe the irony hadn't kicked in. But Kevin Drum played me the second Deicide
Deicide.
album, Legion.
You had to go there, Tim Dahl.
And what
Well,
I
I
heard
did.
was an onslaught of H.R. Giger-esque insectoid robots
Perfect.
with pincers at very high speed. And I thought to myself, golly, this is music that I can really sink my teeth into. So I guess I've proselytized about death metal for many decades. When I got into it, it was a lonely
Oh, yes.
pursuit. I
So
mean,
trust
what
me,
is
me
your
too.
what is your output with death metal?
well, I've been in weird. I mean, I would only be in a weird metal band. I would never be in a. There's
So
enough straight ones.
what weird metal bands?
Well, I mean, I was in a sort of grind band called Hatewave that was sort of a
Everybody loved that one.
kind of a, well, it was a great band. Not my problem, they don't know, as usual, but it was pretty fucking awesome. I was in a band called Hatewave in the 90s, and then I did weird gigs with smaller bands no one's heard of. I mean, I was in a band called Behold the Arctopus for about 4 years, which
Well,
is...
that was one of the most complicated
Yeah.
prog
musical.
metal.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
basically...
that's one of the most mathematically complicated prog metal groups on the planet.
Did you see us play?
I heard it and I did not.
was enough.
I know it's not my trip.
That new record you played me, I want to check that thing.
Well,
That's
pretty
I'm-
awesome.
Yeah, I kinda
Look,
want
I
that,
mean,
yeah.
it is so complex and so over the top and so beyond the beyond of everything. But if you're into that shit, then it's the top of that pyramid.
I never saw any point to be like in a redundant metal band of any sort because there's already 10 million
You've never
of them.
seen
So what are your opinions about
of any band?
What are your opinions about the new, the neo black metal of gentrified urban America?
I hate it. Black metal's been dead since the late 90s because dorks who don't like heavy metal are into it, and they're wrong. That's the incorrect reason. It's for nerds, and they suck, and they're goofy little nerds, and I hate that. I actually was really into death metal because it was kind of like reminded me of my background, which is hillbillies and like the violence and evil and kind of like that's kind of why I related to it.
Okay,
Northern Florida.
All right. Hey, now that you brought it up,
Not my cup. But.
excuse me. Now that you brought it up, Weasel, I want to go there for a minute. So you actually have your bloodline is a history of men that went to war, hillbillies, violent.
Yep.
You're the small
familiar.
one of the family.
Yeah.
You're the shrimp of the Walters.
I'm the tiny one.
You're the tiny weasel of the family.
Your father was a fireman,
my
Vietnam
figure.
vet.
Yep, and there was incredible amounts of violence on the male, on the male side of your family. But you seem to have channeled, because I don't think you are not a violent person. Your music may be violent at times, but you seem to be able to have channeled that, and also I thank your father for stopping the cycle. But you've been able to channel that, what I call the pollution of the bloodline, into your music.
And that's why people should encourage me to do this because it's saving their asses.
Oh, yeah.
So send your money to.
As opposed to myself, who does have an incredible amount of violence. And oh, yes, I have channeled it into my music, but do occasionally have to slap a fucking bitch or a bitch boy. But that's just my problem, not his. Or sometimes it becomes his problem.
I have a lot of energy, and
He has a lot of energy.
making art has been a good way of diffusing the negative aspects of that. And honestly, if you look at why I've been so prolific, it's because I got a lot of fucking energy I got to get out.
So
I
what
gotta do
happens?
something with it.
So Weasel, what happens when you aren't allowed to do your art? How do you start
Well, I
behaving?
mean,
I
why-
get angry and depressed
excuse
and
me.
mad.
But why, excuse me, why would you not be allowed to do
Well,
it?
you don't have to
'Cause
go
there are-
there.
Well, no, because there are a multiplicity of ways to fucking create. And it's like, sometimes it's in this format and sometimes it's in that format.
Yeah, but I need to be physically involved in it. I can't just sit at a desk
No,
and
of
fucking
course.
have theoretical music running through my head. I have to actually go out and lift the fucking sandbags or whatever, I have
Well,
to
see, because it's your war.
Yeah. Well, you know what
That's-
I am on stage. It is war. I play fucking guitar next to you. Luckily, you basically are just like, go ahead, son, do whatever you want.
Well,
I'm like flying off the fucking
So
rafters.
for the audience that doesn't realize,
Well,
that
excuse me, yeah.
the positioning of the band is
What band?
Retrovirus.
That would be my band,
yes,
Retrovirus,
yes.
which Tim Dahl, Weasel Walter, and occasionally
So
Bob
I
Ferguson.
You're listening to the Lydian Spin.
I always get this. I always get this mixed up. There's stage right, stage left, and then house right, house left. Always stage right is basically the band's perspective right side. Lydia is in the middle. Weasel has to be on the left side because he's a right-handed guitar player because he's going so bonkersburg.
Tim and I are just like,
because
wanna hit him in the head with the net.
otherwise
Tim,
the head.
Tim and I are psychically making out on the other side.
Well, there we go, and we got some subs, and we got a little bit of spraying going down.
We're the romantic compartment of Retrovirus.
well, we-
I think my most psycho moment was in
Oh, yeah.
San Francisco about 3 years ago.
You almost broke your foot?
Well, there's a lot leading up to that.
There's
too.
a lot leading up to it. I'm going to make a long story short. My head wasn't quite where it should have. Yeah, there. Let's
Put it
call
away.
it
The
there.
flight to the West Coast was interesting.
Yes, we can even talk about that. But needless to say, somehow my band dragged me over the finish line,
What
made
band?
me
we
Retrovirus.
dragged you over the finish
This is the
line.
Lydian
Well,
Spin.
it was a special weekend.
Well, yes, it was a special weekend, and I didn't recover so great. And needless to say,
You
we
seem
went.
great to me now. I
We
don't
went
know that.
into the rehearsal before this tour of the West Coast in Australia, and I knew the songs, but I didn't really know where my fingers went anymore. And the drummer kind of looked at them and sort of went, "What?"
No, he goes, you kids are stupid, and stormed out of the room.
Well, needless to say, Tim Dahl
You weren't there.
commanded it. He knew what had to be done. He was like, "Weez, you got to learn these songs. We're going on tour." So I got on the plane. We flew out to the West Coast. I think my true psycho moment in this band was we played at this big place in San Francisco, and they have these ridiculous Kiss-style
terrace stage.
Yeah, like
That was
terrace,
great.
like steps going
Yeah.
up each side of a drum riser.
It was like a burlesque theater that
Hilarious.
had steps going up.
So I'm chewing the scenery, man. I'm playing guitar and I'm going up and down these steps like Kiss, like I'm being a real jag-off, doing the thing.
Midwestern
But
term
at
that
one
means
point, I
jerk
got
off.
real confident. And there was one point in the music where there was going to be like a big cue, and I was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. So I'm like 20 feet on this huge-ass drum riser. I'm going to fly basically 30 feet in the air and land on the fucking downbeat. So there's a picture of me. Lydia's old boyfriend,
aren't they
Bart,
all
has the
old?
picture, and it's me about 30 feet in the air with my legs like scissors. It's fucking insane. And I land, and the drummer misses the downbeat. And I'm just like, fuck!
And
Nobody would notice.
and
but
you
yeah.
broke your foot. You broke your
yeah.
foot.
Yeah, I fractured my foot. And of course, I just played the whole tour with a fractured foot, but like whatever. But it was kind of like, I know everyone was kind of looking at me going, whoa, when I did that one. But see, this is what it's all about, getting to the state of mind where you actually believe that you can do anything and you're doing it for the fucking audience
You know
to show
what?
them, you know what, you motherfuckers can do this shit too, you fucking
Well, no, they
weaklings.
can't. Actually, they
Yeah,
can't.
you're right.
They cannot do it too. We do it for them. And I'm so happy you do it with me, Weasel
Well, you
Walter.
give me access to 20-foot risers.
Yes,
So.
as long as the head of the guitar is not going to smash her in the fucking head.
Well, I mean, I think that's a fucking
I've
understatement.
done a lot of
but
crazy shit no one's ever seen.
I give you access to 20-foot risers.
It's best.
I
when
hope
you
that's
do-
not my obituary.
It's best when you do awesome shit in front of actual people, whereas most of my career has been playing in front of empty rooms. So
well,
Oh, so I mean, actually, one of my goals is to expose you to as many people as possible in more ways than one, of course. But that's only because I know the brilliance of the systems I cannot even comprehend that you inhabit, and also you are the only. And I hate to reduce you to this, but you are the only person that could play the guitar like Robert Quine, Roland S. Howard, myself, and whoever else played fucking guitar for me, because there is no comparison. And I do not think of you as just a guitar player. That's ridiculous.
to his fans, he's more known as a drummer, actually.
Well, I've tried that with him as well, and I thought that was pretty successful. That was Brutal Measures. But no, to inhabit the guitar of so many, now dead, of course, except for myself, very diverse guitar players, and to conceive a set, which Weasel is very responsible for conceiving the Retrovirus. And Retrovirus, for those that don't know, is my retrospective of so many other songs and styles of music that I've never performed live before, that have been culminated together in a kind of cohesive thing, mostly because of a Weasel's intent. And it means easier for the drums and bass to a degree, but he has the most difficult job in Retrovirus. And I thank him for that, because
you're welcome.
some of my favorite, somebody that can top Robert Quine, that can top myself, that can top Roland S. Howard, and bring that to my music. It's
But of course, it's not about trying to top them. It's trying to channel the real intent of the artist.
And to me, it's amazing, and it's why Retrovirus carries on to this day. It's why it's one of my longest running projects.
Well, look,
because
here's the thing about art. Like, everyone says they're influenced by this or influenced by that, but what the fuck does that mean? When you see the final product, you're like, really? You're influenced by that? To do what? To leave the house to do this nonsense? I don't buy it. You know what I mean? The thing is, if you're influenced by an artist, fine. It doesn't have to directly reflect the style, or, you don't have to ape an artist, but being influenced is not necessarily about what's on the surface of what the artist did. It could be something a lot deeper, or maybe accidental, or maybe one frame in a moment of time that they don't even think is relevant to anything. I mean, I'm a weirdo, so I pick out all these little moments of things people do.
You like postcards. Well, look, you pick out all these moments, but in something like Retrovirus, which is trying to condense a multi-decade musical schizophrenic concept into a cohesive project, you have basically been the band leader of that, and have also been able to just respect and take further the music that was made at that period. And bringing Tim Dahl in was just a stroke of genius, and hence here we are. The Lydians been with Tim Dahl and Weasel Walter, two of my favorite musicians, men and
Well,
motherfuckers.
you got a man witch going on between us right here.
You know what? It would take. Excuse me. Wait. Let me just address that. If you really think you could man witch me, who's going to be the bitch at the end of the night? Let's just say it's the Lydian Spin. Whoa!
Oh!
You're listening to the Lydian Spin with Tim Dahl and Lydia Lunch and the Weasel. The Weasel! You know, sometimes people are like, hey, do you get that from Pauly Shore? And I'm like, fuck no. And they're like, you get that, you know that guy Ben Weasel from Screeching Weasel? I'm like, yeah, so.
No,
I changed my name when I was 11. I'm 12.
We
Hey,
know
it's
that.
stuck.
He got it because it is.
Whatever, I reinvented myself when I was 11.
Yeah, well, is it time to reinvent yourself again?
I need to, because
I bet actually, I think it's a good name. I think,
doesn't mean anything to me. It's just a name, literally.
well, you think I like my name? I didn't invent my fucking name, and I'm stuck with it. Sounds like a fucking porno star from the fucking 70s. But then again, I guess
Well, some people think your name's like Linda Lynch.
Well, so I have to address this for the fans of Weasel Walter out there. The name is Weasel Walter. It's
Not Walter
Weasel.
Weasel.
It's not Walter. It's
not Mr. Walter.
The fucking Europeans are like, hello, Walter.
Yeah,
I
it's
enjoyed your
Mr.
set. However, I did not like these aspects
It's
of
Weasel
it.
Walter. It's not the Japanese last name in front of the first name. It's Weasel Walter.
You know, the way it's written
Yeah.
all the time? Weasel Walter,
Well,
you read it left to right?
Look, people are dumb. So what?
Oh, wait,
All right.
they are? Anyways,
Duh.
what do you want to talk about?
What
What do you want the rundown on?
I want what. God, if we start about what's unfulfilled in your life, this might take forever.
What's on
but why
first?
not-
Who's
why
on
not
first?
Why don't we just go there? What's up next? Well, actually want to talk about some of your solo projects. Like, I want to talk about Curses.
Great.
Which Curses to me is the album that all the witches like. I mean, not just because it's called Curses, because there's something very unique about it, and that it's not using drums or guitars. I don't know what system
It has both on it.
Yeah, but it's not. That's not the priority of what
No.
the instrumentation is. You would not know there's drums or guitars.
No.
Because you can't even tell what the instrument. How I like to describe the album Curses, which is one of my favorite Weasel Walter records, is the music you don't want to hear before you go into the basement. And to me, that's pretty sexy. I don't know. That's just the way I like it. But and all the witches like it because it's like the opposite of what. Look, I've seen a lot of white boy frantic improv, no diss intended, music, which I call the white boy crack dick music, which is just like somebody trying to get to the end of something and everybody else is suffering because they're not coming. But Curses is something different. I'm sorry, that's not a really good segue. Curses is, again, the sound you might not want to hear, but I do, before you go into the basement. There's something really sexy and creepy about it. You can't really tell what the instruments are because it's not like it's musical in a very dissonant and a very... He's just using all sorts of things like out of the kitchen. The music is sexual serial killer might make before he took you to the basement and tied you up by your ankle. I'm just saying, whatever. Weasel, can you describe, please, what Curses is?
Well, I was crazy
Leave
when I
my
made that.
fantasy
I
out
was
of
really
it.
depressed, and I wanted to make kind of exactly what you hear it is like a mobile of all these like things, these objects like floating in space.
It's almost like, I'm just going to reduce it to this. The rubbing of a balloon that is filled with nuts, bolts, and all kinds of, could be torture or not, instruments.
So like
implements.
I like to get my hands dirty and do like hard rocking rock and roll and all that shit, but
But-
I'm also really influenced by a lot of modern classical music and stuff that's very kind of
Like-
I guess supposedly intellectual, like people like
Xenakis
or
Stockhausen, or
Messiaen.
Messiaen, Varese, Cage.
Yeah,
possibly.
I mean, the 20th century modernism is really important to me because it really ripped apart what people's expectations
so-
of music were, but it was still very musical and very structured.
Can we talk
So-
about Curses? Like,
Yeah.
what is that? Can you just tell us like something about
Okay.
the system, how
Yeah.
you made it? And because look, to the average listener or to the average witch who's listening, it's just this kind of sexy, mysterious, kind of creepy, kind of insinuating. It's kind of
Yeah.
juicy. How did you create it? And what? I know you have systems. We
Yeah.
don't know what those are.
to make a long story short, because I
Please
could
do.
probably talk about this for a half hour, what happened.
We only
'cause
need about 3 minutes of
I
it.
was batshit nuts when I made it. And I was like home alone in my room and everyone was gone except my roommate Dave.
Creepy
And I was
boy.
like, I need to make a record in my room right now. And basically, I was sort of influenced by this band, the Music Improvisation Company, which was this thing with Derek Bailey and Evan Parker. But they're like the famous guys. But the non-famous people in that band were doing really cool stuff with percussion and ring modulators. And I just decided, hey, I want to do a record like this. But as I did it, I started recording it. I looked at the screen and I was like, wait, there's a fucking grid here. I want to use this grid because like this could just be formless fucking total crinkly crackle stuff. But I started seeing that there was a way to organize all this stuff in a really concrete way. And like in phrases and stuff. So what it is it's 99 tracks. But it's really 4 pieces, but you can play it in any order.
4 pieces of 99 tracks that you can play in any order. Let's just say that
and it's
again.
coherent no matter what because there's like a coherence of the sound sources and there's sort of an implied tempo, even though it's totally arrhythmic and like.
Well, the most connective tissue of it is the overriding vibe of it. Like, it doesn't matter where you play it, the vibe is the same. It is conceptual by the vibe of it.
It's an infinite music because you could play it infinitely on shuffle and you'd never notice. You might get bored or you might die before you find any repetition in it because it's so abstract that you would never hear any repetition in it. But it's totally coherent in itself. And I just wanted to make a statement that was about these small constellations of sounds kind of floating in the air. And I mean, it is witchy. It's kind of like a ritual music. It's endless. It never really, it has pauses, but it never stops. It's
And he's reducing it to this, which we can almost comprehend, but we really actually cannot understand the complete system of how he produces some of this stuff. I mean, I know I can't. I've been here before. It's like, sometimes some paintings, because I don't paint, I can't comprehend. I've worked with a lot of musicians, but there are some that I just cannot, and it's so mysterious to me. It's just so interesting. I cannot comprehend how this stuff is made because it may sound random. It is fucking not. Like, I can create psychoambient random material. That's just some kind of schizoid idiot savantism. Weasel is working in systems that are beyond the normal human comprehension. He's underplaying it right now.
And I'm happy to explain it to anyone who wants to listen, which is almost no one.
This is the Lydian spin.
You're listening to Weasel Walter. My working class, like shitty upbringing is the rock and roll, sweaty, like visceral,
down
like,
and dirty
linebacker tackling you part of my music.
I like that part.
By day.
Yeah.
And then the
But at night.
Come on, big boy. Bring it on, big boy.
The other part is, this like intellectualism of the whole gestalt, the whole fucking paradigm and how everything fits together. That to me, it's not some like postmodern bullshit where I'm like, ooh, high and low are the same. No.
Then what is it? What is it?
Well, they're almost like paradoxes of each other, like on separate planets, but I can see both sides of it or something like that. I don't think that fucking anal cunt and Xenakis are the same, but kind of if you like put them on a cube and you rotate it, one is kind of on the exact opposite side of the other, and I like all those sides.
Well, this
I can
is the
connect all those dots.
genius and the perversity of the compositional master and master musician and musical masturbator, Weasel Walter.
Hey.
This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Weasel Walter. Weasel, one last thing. I mean, again, not only are you an archivist, you're an aardvark right now, an archivist and aardvark, an musical activist. You pulled many people into your world. You've been in you've explored many different genres of music. You've released 200 or more records. And let's talk about your record label for a while, because how else could you do that besides, as we both have done before, releasing them ourselves?
Because we don't fucking wait around for people to do shit for us.
And also we know these are limited in design and limited by the desire of other people.
There's also, for me, there's an aspect of if literally no one's going to buy this thing, I actually can't even make it. So I have to know my market in a weird way, and that sounds very...
No, it doesn't.
It's called survival. It's called fucking survival, basically. Well, because when I make a record, I am honestly like, sometimes I'm on like the edge of my seat like, God, is anyone going to buy this?
And are they? And who knows?
Well, and I don't have any money, so I can't really afford to lose money. So the thing is, I played it really safe, and I've done small additions.
I played it safe by releasing 200 fucking CDs of my own music and other people's.
I played nothing safe, but I played safe what I could play safe, which was not being a total fucking idiot and going completely bankrupt, bankrolling a label. But I have a label called Ugg Explode Records, which started out as a little logo that I made, and I put on a cassette tape in 1991, and now we're up to 77 releases, and I've done a lot of my own music, improvised music, solo albums. I've done all the Flying Luttenbachers records technically are on Ugg Explode Records. I've put out records by other bands that I like.
Yeah. And solo artists.
And solo artists, and I've done a lot of improvised music with hundreds of people, and I've documented some of that work. So basically...
and look, this is what's most important, and this is what we both share, is like documentation is so important. It doesn't matter if anybody's into it, if anybody's buying it or not. I somehow knew, and you knew also from a very early age. It's like I knew from the age of like 12, whatever I'm doing, I have to document.
I'm not going to sit back.
And wait
My music
for
is
somebody
correct,
else.
and I'm not going to just let everybody who's got fucking money put out their bullshit fucking garbage and not compete with it artistically, because my shit is fucking correct, and I don't give a fuck who buys it. It's correct. And most of this other bullshit that gets put out is garbage.
Well, and the most important thing that I've always felt is, look, we're here to shit in the face of history, and we've done it.
Rare 'em.
And we're not stopping. And that would be Weasel Walter, Lydia Lunch, and brought in Tim Dahl, come together.
We're coming for you at Madison Square Garden next Sunday.
Look, if we would have been professional wrestlers, we'd get a lot further in our career. We do what we have to do, what is in our blood to do. We have come together. We don't give a shit whether you like it or not. We're going to continue to do it. And I, as a part of a facilitator, my goal is to try to find methods for not only myself, but other people to be able to at least, look, I can't, I know my love don't pay your fucking rent, but to at least get out what it is we need to do as a document, shitting in the face of this fucking history, which at this point is culturally bankrupt, is spiritually bereft, is financially not working in our favor. But you know what? Fuck all y'all. Because you know what? We're going to be charging for this podcast soon. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Weasel Walter. We're out of here. Thank you.